Hi everybody, Maya here. I'm here tonight to talk to you about failure, and permission to fail big. Like to have a spectacular, blowout, horrible failure. Why would that be a good thing? Well, that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. So if you've been following me for the past couple of weeks, I have been talking to everybody. Hi, Horace. I've been talking in my Facebook posts that I have a new radio show that is starting tomorrow on live radio, okay? So I noticed inside myself that I had this desire to be like, you know what, let me do the first show or first couple of shows. Hey, Jennifer. And, so I thought, okay, I've got this live radio show coming up. Why don't I do a couple of shows that some people will hear, but I don't tell everybody about it? Hey, Steven. And then I thought, why would I do that? Like, why would I do that? Because I'm scared, right? You do something new, you get scared. And the idea of taking a risk publicly is something that we have been taught is very bad. As adults, like as kids, so you're learning how to do things, you go to school, and it's assumed that you don't know how to read or write or do stuff. So there's permission to fail. And then slowly that starts to change, like you're too big to fail or something. And so, oh, and Shannon's here too. How cool. Hi, guys. And so we get to this point when we're adults where like we are so afraid to be the beginner again that it just stops us from going after the things that we would like to try. I don't know what that is for you. Hi, Rich. Oh, how fun to see you here. So, okay, so what I'm saying, since everybody's sort of like hopping on at different times, that I'm talking about like permission to fail big and to risk publicly, and like why we're scared to do that. Because at a certain point as grown-ups, it's like, well, you should know how to do that by now. And that really holds us back. So I've got this new radio show. It starts tomorrow. I'm just telling everybody. It airs, if you're local with me here in the Central Catskills, 91.3, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's also online, 1 o'clock Eastern, okay? And I'll post the link, and I'm just going to like share all over the place the links between today and tomorrow. And the reason that I'm doing that is because, wait, why? There's a couple of reasons. One, Debbie Ford, one of the great teachers, if you're into like personal development and self-expression, which if you know me at all, you know that I am. She talks about creating a vision that's bigger than yourself. Now, what that does is like actually, this isn't even an if. Hey, Rita. And Rita says, not so much permission to fail in her childhood family, no matter what. That's interesting, right? For some of us, it starts right away. I certainly had some of that too, where it was like, even when I was a little kid, I was somehow expected to know how to do things. Have you had that? Can you think of an experience where you stepped out, tried something new, looked like an idiot, and now you feel like a failure and you just never want to do it again? It's like this constricting feeling inside you, and you just don't want to feel that way, so you're going to avoid it. Hi, Kathy. So that's what's exciting about giving yourself permission to totally screw things up and make a horrible mess. And it can be in anything, like, awkwardly asking somebody out. I met this man at a party going on 6 years ago. And I was seeing somebody else, and I didn't live in the area. And he's like, I'd like to see you again. And I was like, not available. And he said, well, you know how to find me through mutual friends. And so 4 years later, I came back and I started living here, and I thought, what happened to that guy? I want to find out what happened to him. And so I was like scheming with my friend who had introduced me to him, like, we're going to have an art opening, and then he'll come to the art opening, and then I'll be there. And then, hi, Connie. And then my friend canceled the art opening, and I was like, oh my God, if I want to go on a date with this guy, I'm going to have to call him and ask him out and tell him I'm available. It was so terrifying. I kid you not. I rehearsed 2 speeches. One, if he answered his phone live, I would say this, whatever it was, hey, easygoing. Or if I got his voicemail, I would say something different. Because what? I was so afraid of that weird awkwardness of asking somebody out and putting myself out there. So it could be something like that, or it could be something bigger, like, I don't know, you feel just, it could be any kind of a new experience that you want to be having, right? That you want to be putting yourself out there, maybe posting a real opinion to Facebook, or sharing something with, maybe you have kids and their parent, their friends have parents maybe with slightly different views, and you want to share your views openly, but you're worried about getting shut down. Now, obviously, you always do this in a discerning way, right? But what if we just decided, hey, Nadine, what if we just decided that it's totally okay to make a mess of things? What then becomes available to you? Well, that guy from, now it's 2 years ago, I called him, he's my boyfriend, so that was successful. Even though I will tell you, after I left him a voicemail, which I got the voicemail, I was so freaked out by the fact that I had actually put myself out there and said, like, 4 years after meeting you, I'm still thinking about you. Do you like me? Right? Because you got to get to that sort of fragile, vulnerable place inside of yourself and be like, that's what's on the line, right? That's what's on the line. Hey, Tess. Hey, Walter. And so, like, how do you recognize that you've got that tender, scared part of you that's really worried about judgment and getting shot down? Hi, Aaron. And yet still put yourself out there, right? So obviously you have to have some people who are going to be supportive of you. After I called this guy and left a message saying I would love to see him for a drink, I hung up the phone and just like ran screaming through the house, right? You get all this excess energy. I was like, you had to let it out of your system. Don't lie to yourself about how you're feeling. You're allowed to be terrified, right? Whatever it is. And I had my sister there who was, mocking me a little bit, and but in a good way, right? And keeping it light a little bit so that I didn't take myself too seriously. So you got to have the right people around you who are going to support you and encourage you. The other night, if you caught my Facebook Live from a couple of nights ago, I was talking about why naysayers are good. And one of the things I was saying is that they show you your vulnerabilities in the places where you have like emotional wounding or extra sensitivity. And you have a choice. We all always have a choice to like just have that be the thing that we pay attention to, that wounded feeling, and then we just do everything we can to protect it and hide, and we run away and we don't do the thing that our soul is saying, like, go do the thing, ask the person out, or express your opinion on Facebook, or, I don't know, read a poem to someone. And so I lost my train of thought when I started talking about naysayers. Oh, so you have to have the right people around you, okay? So I know I hear from my coaching clients a lot that they're like, thank you for giving me permission to live my life authentically. So really, that's all that I'm trying to do right now is like, sometimes you just kind of have to like hand over, you have permission to fuck it up and be a mess and look terrible. And so with this radio show that I am doing live on air starting tomorrow, I just made this decision that I'm going to risk it publicly. I'm going to tell everybody about it, and I want to see what happens. We still don't know what is going to happen. Okay. I remember doing this speaker training a few years ago, and right before we all went on stage, the coaches gathered us backstage and were like, okay, what are you going to do if you fall off the stage? And I was like, wait, I could fall off the stage? I didn't even know to be worried about that, right? But the first thing you can do is kind of cultivate a sense of humor about it and find some people who are going to say to you that it's not about how perfectly you do. This is where we just trap ourselves, because we start to think, you're like, okay, using my example, I'm going to ask somebody on a date, that it's like the person has to say yes, and then you have to fall in love and live happily ever after. Right? No, you just have to get up your nerve to go ask the person on the date. That is success, right? We set ourselves up so that we feel like we're failing way before we are ever failing. Okay? So that's one thing that you want to watch out for is like, am I setting this up in my mind in such a way that I cannot succeed in my own view? Like, am I saying that, let's say for my radio show, There's certain strictures, or I don't know if that's the right word for it, but there's a certain structure, maybe is the right word, for when you do the weather online or on air. And when, I've got a certain time frame that I'm going to try to hit certain points during the radio show. I'm probably going to screw that up. So does that mean tomorrow, if I go live on this radio show and I hit the wrong button, or my song doesn't play, or I don't do the weather around the right time, does that mean that I have failed? Right? Like, think of the thing that you want to do, and then imagine, just take a minute and think about like all of the 50 different ways that you believe that you have to hit the mark on every single one of those in order for you to consider it a success. Why are you doing that to yourself? Because we've been trained to do it, obviously. So don't start beating yourself up for that now. But like, that's my question that I want to ask you. Like, look at all of the invisible, like, hoops that you've set up for yourself that you are somehow supposed to jump through in order to declare yourself a success. That is just bullshit. Showing up is success. Hey, Brad, showing up is success. And so partly what you want to do is just say, fuck it. That's actually the women, there's some women on here right now who were in my mastermind last year, and we spent a whole month playing with the attitude of living from fuck it. Not like, I don't care, kind of like fuck off life, but like, so what? All right, we made a mess. And the beautiful things that these women were finding permission to try was so exciting to watch, because they were like, fuck it, what's the worst that's gonna happen to me? I'm gonna embarrass myself. Rita says she's coming to believe that it's our own gaps that invite or allow others to connect, that we appreciate the chance to be compassionate with others more so than with ourselves. That's interesting. That's interesting, Rita. Well, and we need to be compassionate with ourselves and with others, and that takes practice, right? So just start to look at, like, do I have these incredibly impossible to meet rules for my success? For me, if this is really funny, actually, if I'm starting to think about it. So I had these really expensive, like $300 headphones, noise canceling headphones, and I haven't used them for anything. I was planning to start a podcast, and that was 3 years ago, and I never did. So now I'm going on the radio. I'm like, great, these earphones, let me get an adapter for them. And I cleaned them up, and I had them out on the kitchen counter. And my boyfriend went to put them on, and he opened them like this to fit his head, and they just broke apart in his hand. So I don't have headphones. And then today I got a flat tire. I have a flat tire right now. I'm like, how am I supposed to drive to the radio station? So like, at this point in the game, it's becoming very clear that just by showing up, I will have won. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Barbara. And Barbara says, as in, if you're vulnerable, you won't hurt me, so I can talk to you. She's responding to Rita. That's beautiful. That's the other thing, though, the word vulnerable coming up. That's such a bad thing in our world, isn't it? And that's why what I mentioned at the beginning of this Facebook Live, Debbie Ford talks about creating a vision that's bigger than yourself. And that means you sign up for a program, or you make yourself leave a voicemail for somebody, or, whatever it is. I've directed a lot of solo shows, and one of the key things always for the person who's going to be starring in his or her own solo show is you have to book the show. You might not have written the show yet. I cannot tell you how many times that has happened. But you have to book it, and now you're going to step in and expand into what you've set up for yourself. So now you're like, well, now you really are living from the attitude of fuck it. Oh, well, I guess I'm doing a solo show, or whatever it is, right? And so you have to start finding ways, if you feel like you are ready to start expressing yourself in a new way, you have to then find sort of a platform or a venue that will create some kind of external accountability for you. Hey, Aaron. And so, okay, let me see. I just had this like inspiration I wanted to talk about, not a super organized series of points here. What do I want to say to you? You have permission to fail. I don't care what anybody else says. And you feeling vulnerable inside yourself, who cares? Really, living from the attitude of fuck it. Surround yourself with people who will say to you, you did it. And that's enough. And that is more than enough. Because you know what? Most of humanity is just like surviving and trying to get through the day. But if you, and that already, that's a success sometimes, right? So if that's you, that's successful. But if you're feeling like, okay, I have done so many of the things that I really want to do, but I keep feeling like there's something more. You're feeling like, who am I supposed to be out in the world? What's my life's work? What's my contribution going to be? And you're feeling like you want to pull back and hide. It's for the reason that we say that looking messy or making mistakes is bad, and that constitutes a failure. But I'm here to say to you, what if you think of it differently? That just showing up and trying something different and stepping out and being a little bit more visible than you were yesterday, that is a success. Let me see. Okay, Jennifer says she's on the road now to something she booked a while ago. It's a day late, no preparation time, but showing up anyway. Absolutely. Fuck it. Good for you. Good for you. Now, I'm not saying you need to be all the time like haphazard in the way that you show up. That is not what I'm saying. But sometimes if you're holding back for fear of looking bad, you need to start flying more by the seat of your pants. So where do you want to start flying more by the seat of your pants? Like, what's something that you're like, I really want to do it if only I had the nerve, but I don't want to look bad. You know, looking bad is just such a trap. And one of the things that it's hard to sometimes grasp at first because we're so trained, I call it ego school. Like, well, you know, you look kind of bad. Like, that's how we're raised, right? To fit in. But soul school, soul liberation is like, what am I most desiring to express right now? And what's standing in my way? I mean, I would probably say that just describes what I do with people is like, what is it that you're desiring? Okay, let's figure that out. And then what's standing in your way? Is it this fear of looking bad? It could be that. Okay, how do we take that on? And then how do we create a vision that's bigger than just you sitting at home wishing that you were doing something different with your life, and like get you some external thing that you're plugged into so that now you're just being pulled along by the ride of life, and now you're going to do the thing that's bigger. And you know what happens? This is the thing. Because we are always waiting to feel ready to do the thing. You know how you get ready to do the thing that you're feeling the call to do, but it's scary and outside your comfort zone and you've never done it before, and you might really screw it up because it's your first time and you're a beginner. The way to be ready to do that thing is to do the thing. And then on the other side of it, you're like, oh, now I've done that thing. I have that under my belt. All right, so permission to fail big, first of all, is like, I'm just granting it to you right now. Hi, Alyssa. And so I'm going to check my notes for a second. Oh, this is one thing that I have highlighted here that, have you ever heard about what people regret in life? They really regret the things that they didn't do. Now, to get a little perspective, this is what I love to call the deathbed perspective. Not an idea. I got it from a spiritual teacher of mine several years ago, but I love it. And you'll hear me talk about it a lot. It's this idea of if you flash forward to the end of your life, and there you are, it's over. There's no more looking bad or looking good, nothing. What do people regret in that moment? They regret not the things that they did where they fell on their face, but the things that they felt like they wanted to do and they did not do. And so keep that in mind when you're feeling that urge to step out and stop hiding and get more visible and express yourself in a bigger way, but you're having all of that fear hold you back. Because giving yourself permission to fail big, it actually starts to get you in the flow of soul-aligned action. And you just start feeling this really deep fulfillment, which you'll feel right now today. And then you'll also, at the end of your life, why not aim, I mean, really, right? Because we're all going there. You will feel like, okay, I did it. I did it. I did it. I failed. I fell on my face, but I did it. And that's actually really huge. And that's the main difference I have to say I've seen between living from ego and like trying to get strokes and look good on the outside world and have status or money or whatever the thing is. And the soul expression, you're just going to get this quiet feeling of fulfillment inside of you. Imagine living from that place. Imagine living from there. So what is it that you want to go do? Because, you know, staying small is default. It's what we've all been trained into. But if you want to live this soul expanded life, What's the thing that's calling to you? What is it? You know, because what's interesting is if you start living from that place, new opportunities show up. I did not look for this radio show. At a memorial service for a family member, I met two people who work for a local radio station. And they were like, hey, you should pitch a radio show. And I was like, and I could not shake the idea. And every time I thought about it, I was like, ooh, how cool. And then I'd get a flash of terror. And this is something to keep in mind. When you step out and you do the new thing and it's big, sometimes there's immediate, like a rebound, like a backlash effect, okay? So just be prepared to feel panicked. That's also part of it. But then after that panic, because that's always like, I heard somebody, I was in an email exchange with her earlier this week. She's the one who introduced me to that idea that you can call it backlash. And she said, if you're not raised to really shine and share your brilliance with the world and make mistakes and have that be okay as you figure yourself out, how to express yourself and who you are in the world, like who the real you is in the world, that the more you do share your brilliance or start to shine, the more panicked you get, because you said, I thought this was such a great image. It's like leaving the shore behind and you're out on this really big sunny lake and you've never driven a boat before. And it's really, really far to get back to the shore and you start to panic. And that's the inner emotional experience that you can have. So know that that's normal. Again, that's why you need to be surrounded by people who get you. Okay. So let me see. Is there anything else I wanted to add? You know, having the vision bigger than yourself, it forces you to show up, right? And it forces you to stretch, but then it gets you to that place where you have that fulfillment and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm ready now because I did it already. You have it under your belt. And I think that just what makes it all okay, and you might not feel this right away, is just because you're going to like give yourself permission to fail spectacularly. Doesn't mean it won't feel terrible, but on the other side, you're going to be like, okay, but I did it. But I did it. So you don't have to share publicly, but inside yourself right now, take a minute and look at, what do I want to do? Where do I want to express myself more? And then just give yourself that permission to fail spectacularly, because even failure, it's just such a stupid word and it holds us back so much. We have to rewrite what the terms are for success. And in my opinion, it's showing up and just trying and showing up and expanding your self-expression and giving yourself that freedom. So go. And you know what? I think I'll post a link here to the radio show tomorrow. It's called The Moment. I'm going to be on every other week. And so I would love it if you joined me live on the air. How risky is that? I'm going to be risking publicly. I'm sure I'm going to want to vomit in the moment. And I will make sure to check back in with everybody and tell you afterwards how it went. But I'm pretty sure that I will probably live through it, even if it's a wipeout, and you will too. So get out there and do your thing. Lots of love to you all.